Okay, sorry about the technicality. We are now streaming live. Jeff, if you'd like to start the meeting.
I'll start the meeting now for the virtual neighborhood meeting agenda. This is the zoning bylaw amendment, PZ 0320, and official plan amendment for plan of condominium affecting 9 Lloyd Street. Just as a little update, Councillor Antosky and I are both online. We are your ward council representatives. And we also have with us Jeff Medeiros, the intermediate planner. He's the planner on this file. Sean House is a planner, and he will also be taking the minutes and notes. We have the agents for the representative from the IBI group. Odette Gomes is here. And we have the applicant owner, Brian Detzer, from the Ontario Corporation is here. Now, I just want to explain some rules. Please have your mute turned off unless you are speaking, and then unmute yourself when you want to speak. Now, the process will be that the planner will give us an overview, and then we'll have a presentation by the applicant, and then we will take questions from the public. All your questions and comments and notes will be recorded and presented as part of the application when it comes before the committee. So feel free to ask and anything you provide here tonight does not prevent you from either sending an email or letters or any other communications to the committee, to Councillor Antosky, myself, or to Mr. Medeiros and staff that can be added afterwards if you forget something that you didn't think about tonight. All right, thank you. Having that, go forward. Jeff, please go forward.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Carpenter, Councillor Antosky, and members of the public. My name is Jeff Medeiros. I'm an intermediate planner of the city, and I'm just going to really provide here a high-level overview of what the current permissions are on the property. Odette Gomes, the agent from IBI Group, will go into a bit more detail about the application itself. Subject lands, it's actually 2 parcels of land, one being 9 Lloyd, which we've referred to as in the application, and then the other is a vacant property that doesn't have a civic address, but the applications does affect both properties. So these are what I'm going to call the subject lands. In terms of current policies on the property, so we have an official plan. It's a policy document. The northern limits of the property, or the upper portion of the property, sorry, is already designated medium density residential, whereas the southern portion is designated low density residential. So the idea of the official plan amendment is to basically bring both properties under one land use designation in the official plan to align with the development proposal that will be discussed this evening. With respect to zoning, this is basically a schedule from the zoning bylaw. So the northern portions of the property has 2 zoning designations associated right now, one being R4A-49 and OS3, which is an open space zone. That is in relationship to a previous development application for the northern limits of the property, whereas the southern limits of the property are zoned R1B. And that zoning, for the most part, permits uses such as single detached dwellings. So with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, the applicant intends to bring basically the entire property under one new zone, most likely an R4A in this case, with some site-specific provisions. And that's to facilitate the development proposal. So that was a high-level overview. And now I'm going to leave it off to Odette Gomes to provide a bit more detail with respect to the development proposal. Before we begin, though, I just want to confirm, for those that are on the call, if you could kindly mute your microphones, hearing a bit of pickup in the background. But there will be an opportunity, as we said, that there will be an opportunity after this presentation from the applicant to provide a bit of an overview of the proposal, but there'll be an opportunity for the members of the public to ask any questions in front of the councillors, obviously, and the agent or applicant will be able to speak to it. So with that, Odette, please proceed, and I'll control the presentation.
Great, thank you very much. So again, I'm Odette Gomes, planner with IBI Group. So on this call, we also have our engineer, John Perks, if there's any engineering related questions that we can answer later on. So we're really just gonna focus most of this presentation just to the details of the proposed plan, where we've been and where we are and how we're going to move forward. And just since it's a neighborhood meeting, we're just really going to leave it up to having a good discussion with anybody that has questions, and we'll answer all your questions as best as we can at this point. So the property is 1.72 hectares in total, as you see on the plan there. The developable proportion of the lands is 0.75 hectares of land. So if you could move it to the next slide, please. So this plan here was the original plan that we had proposed, which included a total of 40 residential units in the form of 16 townhouses. And then there was also 24 units in a 4-story apartment building. With this plan, we had 53 parking spaces that were provided for the 40 units. If we could move it to the next slide, please. So our new proposed plan, after we've had our neighborhood meetings, we've had some comments received from city staff and from residents. We've gone back and we took a look at the plan and we revised it. This new plan now includes 25 units in total instead of the 40 original units. And these 25 units come in the form of 2- and 3-story townhouses. We have also included a cul-de-sac in this plan, which is for the use of snow plows and garbage trucks to service Lloyd Street. So this cul-de-sac doesn't service this plan, it services the existing residential development for Lloyd Street and around. So the proposed townhouses that we have here, they're all ground oriented with private access into each unit. So this gives the homeowners more separation than an apartment building because each unit has its own exterior front door. There's no elevators or shared lobbies. Our new proposed development includes 35 parking spaces throughout the site. And in addition, there's also 6 private driveways and 6 private garages. And those are for the exclusive use of the 2-story towns. So in total, we actually have 50 parking spaces for 25 proposed units. So although the new official plan for the city of Brantford is not in full effect, it has been approved and will be adopted by City Council next month. So the new official plan seeks out to ensure that 45% of all new development occurs within the built-up area of the city. This plan is helping to ensure that happens and contribute to that 45% within the existing city boundaries. The lands within the new official plan are designated neighborhoods and residential designation, which permits low, medium, and high density development. So the low density designation, which is more in line to what we're proposing here, it permits all forms of townhouses and permits up to 3 stories. So our proposed development is in keeping with the city's vision for these lands. If you could move it to the next slide, please. So we have provided some elevations for the townhouses. These are just some ideas. So we're still looking for some feedback from residents, from city staff, from city council on what these will look like, the materials, the type of design, all of that. So these ones here that we have here are just some examples for the 2-story townhouses. And if we could move it to the next slide, please. And these are some proposed elevations for the 3-story townhouses. So again, these are just ideas and we're open to discussion on what these will actually look like. So again, these will all have ground floor entrances to all of the units. Just provides a mix of the development. So if we can move it to the next slide again. So this takes us back to our proposed development again. So just in summary, again, we've got 25 units in total. We have the 2-story townhouses, and then we have some 3-story stacked townhouses and some 3-story back-to-back. So this allows us to provide a variety of different uses and really different price points. So we're trying to ensure that there's price points for affordability, which the city is really encouraging. We would love to build just all single detached and townhouses, but unfortunately that's not the reality today. it's not affordable from a development perspective, and it's definitely not affordable from a buyer's perspective. So I think we'll leave it at that, just give you a little bit of background, and we'll just kind of focus on some comments and questions that you have.
Okay, thanks, Odette. Perhaps we can open up the floor to comments or questions from members of the public now.
Yes, Jeff, we've got two. We will start with Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, would you like to ask your question or have any comments?
Mr. Powell, I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, I don't. We don't have any questions or comments on this proposal. We're more focusing on the King George condominiums.
Sorry. So you don't. This evening we're only looking at 9 Lloyd Street.
Oh, that's it. Okay, then no questions.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next question will come from Mr. John Dreyer then.
Did Ann say it's tonight?
Hi, John.
I'm going to call Ann. Let me call her. Maybe.
I think we've lost Mr. Dwyer. I think he's having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get him back on the line. Mr. Dwyer, can you hear us? I think he's having some difficulties as well. Okay, Jeff. I think Mr. Dwyer is having some technical difficulties. Those were the only two attendees that had registered for this evening's meeting. So if you could, anyone else has questions or concerns, maybe we can go there.
Did you want me maybe then just to kind of comment just on some of the questions or just some of the feedback that we received? We can talk about a couple of things maybe, and maybe in the meantime.
I think that's probably a good idea, Odette. I mean, we've between myself and the councillors, we have received some correspondences from residences today. So I think that's probably a great idea. And if I guess if the councillors, do you have any questions, or perhaps we can just go into some of the email comments we've received to date?
Cheryl, do you have any questions?
No, I like the approach of going into some of the things we've heard today.
Okay, I have one for now. So the cul-de-sac would be land that would be, you would build the cul-de-sac and you would that would come over to city's ownership.
Correct.
Okay, all right, go ahead with the question, the ones you have raised already.
Do you want me just to go into it, or how do you want to
please
do this, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So one of the comments that we received was about fencing. And as we indicated at the first neighborhood meeting, the site will be fenced. So that's just something that we're going to work through with the city just to determine exactly, where that location of the fence is. Is it at the top of the bank? Is it in more? Is it behind? Wherever it is. So we'll definitely be having fencing. There'll be fencing that'll be required for the site. So it will be fenced off. And again, we'll deal with the city. We'll go with the city and figure out exactly what type of fence and where. So yes, fencing will be, there will be fencing for this development. One of the other questions was about preserving as many of the trees on the southern kind of portion, like if I could say along like where the hydro corridor kind of is, there's a bunch of trees in there. So I just want to ensure that we did have an arborist that went out. They identified every tree. They went through and determined the quality, the condition, all of that for each tree. And we do have a vegetation management plan. We have a compensation plan. So like for any tree that's removed, there's a compensation plan for more trees to be planted. So trees to be planted in the streetscape trees, as well as some compensation trees that will go on the top of the bank. But there are those trees that I was talking about here that somebody had kind of mentioned adjacent to this hydro corridor. Most of those trees are staying. So this building, not building, this townhouse block, it's really tucked into an area there where there already aren't very many trees. And we kind of did that on purpose to try and just save as many of those trees on that side as possible. So there is a nice buffer between that block of townhouses to the other side of the residential area. And there is at least 200 feet, about 200 feet between the edge of that townhouse block to the property boundary. And then there probably still is another 200 feet of backyards to those neighbors back in there. What other questions were asked, Jeff? Do you remember? These are the ones at the top of my head that were asked about. The 3-story townhouses again. So they are not an apartment building. It doesn't function like an apartment building. It functions the same way as the 2-story townhouses will function. They're just 3-story instead of 2-story. They will have some private amenity space, balconies. There's additional amenity spaces on the ground level. As I said, there's lots of parking everywhere throughout the site for the entire development. There will be mailboxes, community mailboxes, centrally located. There's common amenity spaces throughout the site. We'll have the in-ground waste collection system. So we'll have a private collection system collecting the waste in here. What else can you think of, Jeff?
Jeff, Odette, if I could interrupt,
yes.
We do have Mr. Dreyer back on, as well as Mr.
Great.
Richard Nichols.
Okay.
Let's see if they can. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Nichol. Would you like to ask your question?
I joined late. I'm just trying to catch up right now.
No problem. Would you like to reserve your comment or question until later on?
Yeah, I'd like to follow a little bit and I'll pick it up a little bit later on.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see if Mr. Dreyer will be joining us. Mr. Dreyer, can you now hear us? Mr. Dreyer? I'm sorry, Odette and Jeff, he seems to still be having some technical difficulties.
Yes, his mic's not on. He doesn't seem to have a microphone.
Correct. Yeah, so I can't, he can't hear us. So
can we relay to him that if he can't get on, that he could put his comments in writing to an email to any one of us, and they would still be registered?
Yes, we'll do, Councillor Carpenter. Okay.
I have a letter I'd like to read into the record too. It's from a resident on Locks Road, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to try and scan it and send it to you, Jeff.
Okay.
Picked it up today. It's addressed, of course, to Councillor Toski and I, and I'm opposed to the changing of the zoning from low density to medium density on the following grounds. The area of Locks Road, Lloyd Street, and Beach Road enjoy low density housing due to their proximity to a creek flowing into the Grand River, which adjoins this property. The proposed development and consequent changes to medium density will greatly affect the stability of the land, disrupt established wildlife habitat, and cause erosion problems with the existing creek. And B, due to the density of this project, traffic on Lloyd Street into Locks Road will increase by at least 100 plus cars in and out daily. Traffic on Locks Road has increased because this is the only direct route to Eagle Place. development in the Mount Pleasant and West Brant area and south of Coxshott Road, eventually traffic lights will be needed for safe entry onto locks. This area of Echo Place is low density. We enjoy mature trees, wildlife, and space. The city's recent of putting high rises in most unlikely places to the despair of many taxpayers is most upsetting. The city should consider the aesthetics of our area before changing zoning bylaws. I cannot think that Brantford wants or needs to become another Brampton or Milton. The horrible examples of the ugliest towns in Ontario due to urban sprawl. Brantford is fast losing any character and sadly has become any town in North America. Please do not rezone this beautiful green space. Do be responsible for future generations. Do not be responsible to future generations for paving over Southern Ontario. And that's from Josephine McNeil and 45 Locks Road. But I will scan that and send that to you. Oh, I see Jeff Dwyer is available. Jeff, are you available? Or John, are you available to speak? Just, if you're having difficulty, John, try pressing the space bar. I will scan those and send those to you, Jeff. I seen Mr. Dwyer was on. He's not there now.
Yeah, his camera's working, but I think, I don't know if he has a microphone or not.
At the moment, he doesn't. I'm
okay.
having Barb email him, but it looks like he's now left the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So perhaps we can go to maybe Mr. Nickel. I think he's still on the meeting right now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Go. The floor is yours, Mr. Nickel. So by all means, if you have any questions, comments, we're all ears.
Okay, I just recently moved to this area beginning of last year, and I have to agree with a lot of that letter that was produced by the person up the street from me. The one thing I did notice is we do have higher traffic due to the dump. And like he said, going down towards beach, going down the hill, we have a lot of trucks and stuff. That's going to bring a lot more traffic. Now, my house backs onto this area that you guys are talking about developing. So my question is, irrigation, if this goes through, how's water, foliage, like damages? Like if we have water runoff from this whole construction enterprise here, I don't know how big it is, but it looks of it, it's going to be huge. So my worry is, now that we're here, I'm worried about my backyard, and we're like at the bottom of a hill. So all that construction is going to cause water runoff is, you know what I mean? Like I'm just worried about what's going to happen to the properties, like my next door neighbors here and myself, because we're at the bottom of a hill there. And that is going to be above us or in behind us. You have any idea how that's worked out? Have you worked out some of the logistics on that?
Thank you for the question. Odette, perhaps you could maybe provide a response to that or some feedback on that?
Yeah. John, are you on the line still?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Okay, this is our engineer.
Yeah. Sorry, John here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay. Right. So with the development, there will be a proposed storm sewer. So I'm not sure if you're concerned in the construction phase or once it's built, but certainly during the construction phase, there would be erosion control and mitigation put in place to make sure that sediment-laden water, et cetera, wouldn't impact adjacent lands. So typically that's, a silt fence would be placed around the property. There might be some sediment basins to capture the water and let sediment to settle out, et cetera. So that would be during the construction of it. And then once it's constructed, then again, there would be a storm sewer system on the site to collect the storm drainage and swales to prevent it from entering adjacent lands and capturing the water and conveying it to an appropriate outlet.
what is, can you hear me still?
I can.
Okay. What is the proposed start date and the project timeline for this whole project?
That depends on city staff and approvals.
Okay. So let's say you get it. What are you looking at? Like, we'll just start, it doesn't matter when, start date to completion. What are you looking at? Because this is going to be construction in my backyard basically for X amount of time. So I'm just kind of curious on that too.
So I can try to answer a bit of that. You know, the civil works, as in constructing the road and putting the services in, you know, it's pretty small in the scale of things. So I would have thought within, you know, a month and a half or so that phase would probably be pretty much done. And then it would go into, you know, the construction of the buildings. And I'm not sure if it, you know, it probably wouldn't all happen at the same time. They'd work on block by block. And, you know, they can bang up houses and buildings pretty fast nowadays, but, you know, that would be, you know, obviously a few months, but.
How many units we in here?
So there's three buildings at that?
25 units. Yeah.
25 units.
For buildings?
No, altogether, the entire development is 25 units.
Well, I'm looking at, okay, 3 buildings. I see them here now. Because the first piece of paper we got in the mail, it was looking like it went through a photocopier about 65 times. So it was really, I couldn't even make anything out of it with magnifying glass. So I don't know, like myself and my wife, like we're big wild, like we love animals and stuff like that, and we've had deer in the backyard. We're gonna lose all this whole area. All the wildlife is gonna leave once this starts. Well, it could be in our backyard. So that concerns me too, because when I moved in here, that was a big factor why I love this house. It's because when I walk out the backyard, I can see I've had deer in my backyard, and it's awesome. So wildlife protection, because we all know when the city grows, the wildlife have to move. And with the creek running down along the side there, the wildlife love it here. So that's a concern that I have. And the fact that it's going to be pretty much in my backyard, this whole setup, it's going to be right in my backyard.
So just to kind of reiterate, so the entire site that we have is 1.72 hectares, and 0.75 of that will be the developable portion. So are you able to see the screen? Like, are you seeing the screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing the screen. Okay. So if you look at where your cursor is, if you move it down to the circle, and there's, yeah, now move it over to, I guess it would be the right, my right, right there. So now if you go down where your cursor is now, my house is right about there. That's 83 lots. We're right at the crest of the hill.
Okay, great.
The Lloyd Street is like a 20-second walk up the hill from my house.
Okay.
So we're right where your cursor is right now. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 of us. There's 4 houses here.
Okay. So yeah, so this part of the development in here, so this is going to be developed. Everything outside of that is going to remain open space. So we're ensuring that it all gets designated and zoned properly to be protected. There is environmental work that's been done out here. So this will still all remain untouched. And then there's no future development that can ever happen on that.
The black cursor that's on this paper, where is that in conjunction of where I live, where you have your cursor? Because I'm looking at, you got it fenced off like all the way around the property here. Is that just like a property line sort of thing for this whole development?
So this black line that you're talking about that goes here?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the top of the bank there. So that's our developable limits. Okay. And then we still have a 6-meter setback from that top of the bank. So that's what the red line is our setback development from the top of the bank. And then we're just developing inside of that. And everything outside of that will remain in the open space designation and will be undeveloped, untouched, protected.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just wanted to voice my concerns to come in here tonight and do that. Like I said, we just moved here and we love it the way it is. Not too happy about having a huge condo or townhouse setting in my backyard, but I guess we go through the motions. We go from here, I guess.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Nicol.
Yeah.
Odette, we also have a Mr. Paul Whitty that would like to ask a question.
Certainly.
Mr. Whitty, can you hear us? Sorry, I'm just asking him to unmute his microphone. Mr. Whitty, can you hear us?
If I may, for those who can't talk, I wonder if they can phone in on their phones and talk through the phone. It might be easier.
See if I can promote him to a panelist here and see if I can get his microphone working.
Paul, sorry, Paul Whitty wasn't able to make it today.
Oh, he's joined us as an attendee, but I think he's, let's see. Mr. Whitty, can you hear us?
Paul wasn't able to make it today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So, sorry, were you attending on Mr. Whitty's behalf?
Yes, he had registered for both of us.
Okay, go ahead then.
Do you have any questions or
no,
comments, sorry?
No, not for myself. He didn't share those questions with me.
Okay.
So I was just gonna just pass on anything that I learned in here to him.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't know if it really came out at the beginning of the meeting, but this is obviously not the last public meeting. I mean, at minimum, there's going to be a statutory public meeting in front of City Council. There's still opportunity to provide comments. So if Mr. Whitty does want to provide something in writing, he's more than welcome to. He can send them to me directly, or if he'd like, he's more than welcome to email the councillors as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, at this time, we don't have any other attendees with questions.
Cheryl, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good, Richard, at this point.
I got a few, if I can, Odette. I see the red line is the boundary for the property line. It's the 6 meter setback from the property line, and the black line is the property line. Is the intention is to fence that property line?
Yeah, that was one of the questions that was asked before, where the fencing would go. So that's something that we will determine with the city where they want that fence, but it'll have to either be on the top of the bank or in the 6 meter setback. So that's something through the site plan development phase we'll figure out where the city wants to see that fence. But there will be a fence there somewhere.
And what I'm thinking about, because we've heard about the residents in the natural area will be protected from this development if we fence this. We're going to fence the circumference of the property. We don't want it to be accessible. We also don't want people accessing the back of those properties and that be an escape area for those that may want to do things that they shouldn't be doing in that area or in the property, neighborhood property. So I'm thinking about, a 6 foot chain link fence, black chain link fence around there. And then some heavy plantings of trees, deciduous and or coniferous, to provide a shield, and that will still provide an access, quiet planting. It'll provide quietness because they'll suck up sound, and they'll also, give a good separation for the wildlife that's there that the people have really come to enjoy. And of course, then explaining where the water goes as well. The hill should be actually better protected because you're going to be draining water away from this development into this storm sewer system.
Exactly. Yeah, so that is actually the plan, is to put the chain link fence and then to have some trees planted. So that's part of our compensation plan, is to have some trees planted on the slope there. So yeah.
Can we make sure that they're heavily planted so that at the end of the day, you don't necessarily see the development, but it provides great protection for the development and more habitat?
Yeah, and there are several trees that we have to plant as part of the compensation plan. So there are quite a few.
Okay, and I don't know about the fencing as it goes along the side of the properties that butt onto Lloyd. What would you be thinking about for fencing along that side? Because that butts right up against the property lines there. I would think that would be some kind of wood fencing there.
Yeah, and there's also a landscape buffer right between. This is kind of small scale, so you can't see it too well, but there is I think it's a 1.5 meter landscape buffer between the property line there as well. So again, with the city, we'll determine what type of fencing and what type of plantings that we put in through there. But yeah, there is vegetation that's already proposed all the way around.
Okay, I really got one final question. So that when you say plan of condominium, this is one complete condominium corporation?
Yes.
Okay, that makes it more viable as a corporation too, being that number, 25 units, even 25 units. Now, do you have any idea of the price points so the neighbors would know? Just, I know I can't hold you to it because the prices in Brantford are going crazy, but.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't deal with price points, or I don't know. We do have a variety of different sizes and unit types. So that was kind of the idea, to provide a mix. So there's a mix of price points on this site, but they are all good sizes. They're not small by any means. Like the smallest is probably like 1,000 square feet to 1,500 square feet.
And I think you got 50 parking spaces, and I think you're only required to have
yeah, 32? We have a lot more than we need. Yeah,
you got a lot more than you need. So you got plenty of visitor parking as well. That's okay. And any lights that you're going to have any buffers for any lights that may be in the parking lot and any of the turnaround areas shining on the side yards?
Yeah, so that's a photometrics plan that we'll have to prepare as part of the site plan. And that's just a requirement to make sure that the lights don't shine away from the parking lot. So there's guidelines that we have to follow in doing that.
Is there a requirement to give us a view of the bank from the beginning of the development and at the end of the development, so that we can ensure the bank hasn't moved or we haven't added to the bank? I know you probably got good developers, but we've had some that haven't been so good.
There's probably as-built drawings and as-built surveys that'll be required at the end. So we have what it is today, what it's supposed to be, and then at the end, I'm sure there'll be as-built.
And when do we look at that a year after built as well to see if there's been any movement? Is that part of a process by any chance?
So, Councillor, I could probably answer that one a bit more. So through site plan control, there would be a requirement for an agreement, posting of securities, satisfying the city's requirements with respect to detailed design, whether it be, the lighting, the engineering plans, grading plans, slope stability. Those are all really detailed reports that normally get approved and reviewed through the site plan control process. We don't have one of those applications yet. That would normally come after the zoning's in place, but through that process, there would be a requirement for certification. So after, hypothetically development's built, staff would have to go out and do inspections, and then the developer would be responsible to provide certifications from, the appropriate disciplines, whether it be a civil engineer, structural engineer, and so forth. So they would have to certify so many, basically usually after construction, they would certify the works, they potentially get some of their monies back, and then the city would still normally retain a portion for a minimum of 1 year. That's a workmanship. And that's to ensure there's no failures after a year at minimum.
Okay, and Odette, I think you can pass on. I won't speak for Cheryl, but I'm pretty sure she agrees that we were happy that you moved down from the 4-story walk-up apartments to a much more pleasing development as far as and a condominium corporation ensures that it's going to be that way forever because of the condo fees and reserve fund studies that are done, and it'll be well maintained. So we appreciate that you've come down in density, even though you didn't have to do that. We appreciate that from the development. So from the owner, please pass that on for us. Thank you.
I got one more question, if you guys can hear me.
Yep, we can.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So these are going to be single development townhouses, like they're going to be for anybody to buy. There's not going to be low income. They're not going to be geared to income or anything like that, are they?
No, their market.
Their market. Okay.
Sales.
All right. So they'll be going, well, whatever market value is going to be. That's what you were saying. We don't really have a determination on the property values yet until they submit the plans of what they're doing, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I'm just guessing, I'm not in the real estate business, but the market's pretty high, and that's a pretty sought after area. And because of what the residents have been telling everybody about how nice this area is, it's one of the secrets of the Echo Place.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this? And please, if you think of anything after this meeting's over, you're free to email Councillor Toski or myself or Jeff or Odette if you like, and with any comments or concerns that you have, they will be registered in the process for when it comes forward to Committee of the Whole at Council. And if you'd like, you can come to Committee of the Whole at Council and speak as well. So I want to just thank all the residents in the neighborhood for coming. Cheryl and I, Councillor Toski and I are well aware of the speeding issues with Lloyd. We've been trying to solve that problem for some time. We keep looking for solutions. So we do understand that shortcut through the Eagle Place and the landfill is problematic and has been. I think we were not part of the decision-making process when the curve went in at the bottom. Which used to be an intersection where everybody stopped and then turned right. That curve sort of made that more of a raceway. That was Ward 5 at the time, and then it came into Ward 4. So I just want to assure the residents listening, and for the minutes that Councillor Toski and I are working, trying to resolve the issue of the traffic problems on this street and on Locks Road, and we are looking to have a permanent speed limit sign on that location.
Just to add a little bit to that, since I've moved here, the traffic going up the hill, we realize you have to pick up a little speed. Some of these trucks are they're really trying to get up this hill. If they do the speed limit coming around that bend and they're full load, 80,000 plus, you're looking at 120,000 pounds for that truck. They're going about 15 miles an hour by the time they hit Lloyd. They're really in the low gears trying to get up the hill. The problem remains with the people coming down the hill.
Yes.
I've been on the bottom of the street and I've seen cars that go around that corner to the point where they're squealing their tires. So we do definitely need some speed limit signs because that's a very popular walkway down there.
It is.
Crosswalk down there, that doesn't matter. The cars, they don't care. They just keep coming. You got to really wait till you get lots of time before you try to cross that road, and that's on Forest, from beach to Forest.
And while we're on that subject, Jeff, we can put in the minutes as well, is that the sightline corner of Forest and Locks Road, it needs to be cleared permanently so that cars can see safely and so people can man. And the sidewalk needs to have a continuous sidewalk from the last house in Forest to where it should catch up to Locks Road. The sidewalk is not continuous around there.
No, it's not.
Now we're looking at the neighborhood. It would be helpful to do that as well. Just get it on the public record. I know it's engineering.
My wife was just asking. So the sidewalk stops in front of our house on Locks Road and doesn't continue to Lloyd. So is it going to be finished off going up to Lloyd Street now for part of this whole thing? Because right now, if you come off Lloyd, you got to cross the street. Go down.
That question's come up along quite a few times. We'd have to consult with the residents that are fronting onto Locks Road now that don't have the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's me. Well, it stops in front of my house, actually. Right in the property line for my house is where it stops. And it doesn't continue to my next door neighbor to the corner.
Yes. Well, and now that you've mentioned that, it's now part of the public record, which Cheryl and I really appreciate because it helps get those things into the engineering plan.
Well, it's going to be, you're going to have people living there. They're going to want to do walking. Unless you open up the back to the trails, they're going to want to come down. So they're going to end up having to walk down the side of the street or cross the road.
Yeah, I think we would want to prevent them from opening at the back to the trails. That's why I'm asking for heavy plantings there, because we don't want that to become a shortcut for a lot of trail users that we have down there and access.
Yeah. So yeah, that sidewalk will have to be finished if you were to, because right now you're going to have to cross a busy road to get to the other side for them.
So the recommendation that you're giving us is to finish the sidewalk on the east side of Locks Road to Lloyd.
Yeah. It's going to have to get done if this gets done. That's for sure. If this doesn't get done, we don't have enough traffic right now, but you're going to have 25 more families in here. God knows, maybe 50 people, 60 people, you know. Yeah. So they're going to want to use the trails. And that's the ideal thing about this area. You walk down to the bottom of the hill and you got trails going all the way up around the park, Mohawk Park, all the way back the other way. I've never walked up the other way yet, but I hear it's pretty far up the other way.
All the way to Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for moving to the neighborhood. You got a beautiful spot. Is there any other comments that you have or anybody else in the audience have? Having seen none, Odette, do you have any more comments?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Jeff?
I don't. Darlene, is there any more registrants that want to speak before perhaps adjourning the meeting?
No, there's not, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, proceed.
Yeah, I got a list of everybody on the side, so I watched them come and go and try and get on. But can we, those that did register that couldn't get on, can we make sure they get a copy of the site plan in a little better format so they can read it better?
Yes, we can definitely do that. I mean, if anyone wants to email me, I'm more than happy. I mean, this is part of the public record, so any information that's submitted to the city is publicly available. So if individuals want, copies of the site plan, the condo plan, I'm more than happy to provide to them.
Yeah, and I'll have to have some that I can print out here because, I've got a couple of constituents that don't use computers, but example, the letter that I have in front of me. So, that's why that's there. So, but they're very concerned. And I think they will be a little less concerned than they were with a 4-story apartment building. That was the big concern. A rental apartment building, here you got a condominium corporation that's owned by people. The units be selling between, $500,000 and $600,000. It's a big difference. Okay, Cheryl, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, you're okay with me calling you Cheryl. It's just all right. Thank you for all those that participated, and you still have ability to come to council, or again, as I said earlier, copy Cheryl Antosky and I. My phone number is 519-770-6027, and Cheryl?
226-387-3321.
And if you email it, it's just the first initial of our first name and our last name, and it's always at brantford.ca. So very easy, or you can look us up. All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming. And Odette, thank you for your presentation. Jeff and Sean, thank you very much. Darlene, thank you for setting the meeting up.